And welcome to this edition of the Native News Update on this Monday, December 3rd. I'm your host for today's program, Paul DeMain, and many of the stories right here can also be found at our website, IndianCountryNews.com, and here are some of those stories from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. The goodbyes are beginning for Senator Daniel Akaka, who will retire when this lame duck session ends after 22 years in the U.S. Senate. Akaka was the first Native Hawaiian in the Senate and the first Native person to chair the Senate Indian Affairs Committee. He has held 43 hearings over 2 years as chairman, with his last one on November 29th. Fellow senators lauded the Hawaiian Democrat for his work for Indian country. The hearing focused on preserving Native cultures and identities. The Senate Committee on Indian Affairs was holding that hearing called Reclaiming Our Image and Identity for the Next 7 Generations. Witnesses included Lynn Valbuana, former National Indian Gaming Association Secretary and Chairwoman of the Tribal Alliance of Sovereign Indian Nations from Patton, California, Andrew J. Lee, a trustee for the National Museum of the American Indian, Mary Kim Titla, an educator and journalist, Sam McCracken, general manager of Nike N7 programs, and several other witnesses. An elder from Montana's Crow tribe, whose family ceremoniously adopted then-Senator Barack Obama during the 2008 presidential race, has passed on. Hartford's Sonny Black Eagle Jr. passed away at his home in Lodge Grass last week on the tribe's reservation in the southeastern part of the state, according to his son, Crow Tribal Chairman Cedric Black Eagle. The 78-year-old traditional healer passed away in his sleep after battling respiratory problems stemming from a severe case of pneumonia several months ago, according to his son. President Obama called Black Eagle's wife, Mary, last week to express his condolences, according to the White House. Members of the Mescalaro Apache are scheduled to receive checks of $1,500 apiece from their $32.8 million that they received from a federal settlement. The Albuquerque Journal reports that Tribal Council decided to issue the checks this week after getting pressured by community members to split up the entire settlement. The remaining $10 million is expected to be set aside to pay tribal members dividends next year. The Mescalaro Apache settlement came from an agreement announced by the Department of Interior in earlier April to pay more than $1 billion to 41 tribes across the country to settle dozens of lawsuits over the mismanagement of funds and natural resources held in trust by the federal government, separate from the Cobell settlement. A fund has been established for the family of 3 North Dakota children slain last month on the Fort Berthold Reservation. 13-year-old Benjamin Schuster, 10-year-old Julie Schuster, and 6-year-old Luke Schuster were shot to death November 18th, along with their 64-year-old grandmother, Martha Johnson, in Newtown. The Forum reports that the fund, set up through Coda Bank in Minto, North Dakota, is in the name of the children's father, Kevin Schuster, a Newtown man who killed himself in the nearby town of Parshall later the same day of the slayings, is considered a person of interest in that murder case. A state anthropologist has determined human remains discovered in a field off of U.S. Highway 95 in Lyon County, Nevada, were part of a historical burial. Sheriff's deputies told the Nevada Appeal that the remains found on November 19th were of a 3 to 4-year-old child, as determined by an examination of the teeth. According to the anthropologist's report, wear and tear in the teeth was consistent with American Indian populations in the Urington area in historic times. The remains, which consisted of a skull, a rib, and arm bones, were handed over to the Paiute tribe. Portions of a huge quilt made in honor to those who died of AIDS was on display last week at the Wood Center at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Established in 1988, the AIDS Memorial Quilt, a project of the Names Project Foundation, contains more than 91,000 names on nearly 9,000 squares, each measuring 12 square feet. 15 squares are being displayed at the Wood Center as part of the UAF's World AIDS Day celebration, which took place last week and were up for public viewing through the weekend. Each square contains 8 panels made by family and friends honoring their loved ones who have died of AIDS. The squares on display at UAF contain many panels honoring Alaskans. On an average, a new panel is added to the quilt every day of the year. The quilt display was part of the 3-day event hosted by the UAF Student Activities Office in conjunction with the UAF Social Work Department and the Interior AIDS Association. In addition to the quilt, Selena Moose of Anchorage, a National Native American AIDS Preservation Center board member, spoke in the Wood Center Ballroom this past Saturday. And that's going to be another roundup of news from Indian Country. On this edition of the Native News Update, we want to say miigwech for coming here and come back again soon.